In a world where everyone is rushing, where people pass each other without truly seeing, sometimes the most powerful stories begin in the quietest moments. This is the story of Kellen Ward, a billionaire who built walls around his heart, and Mara, a little girl who learned how to survive loneliness far too young. One ordinary day, in a noisy school cafeteria, she walked up to a stranger and whispered the question that would change both of their lives forever. Can I eat with you? What follows is a journey of unexpected kindness, healing, and the moment two broken souls become each other's lifeline. If stories like this touch your heart, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications because more life-changing stories are coming every week. And before we begin, tell us in the comments, what does kindness mean to you? Your words might be exactly what someone out there needs today. The cafeteria was buzzing with the usual morning chaos. Children shoved trays, laughed loudly, and jockeyed for space at tables that were far too small for the crowd. Outside, the autumn wind rattled the windows, carrying the faint scent of smoke and wet leaves. A figure moved through the doorway, unnoticed by most. A man in a simple gray jacket and a beanie pulled low over his forehead. His eyes scanned the room with quiet detachment, but there was an intensity in them that made him seem both out of place and impossible to ignore. Kellen Ward, billionaire philanthropist and notorious recluse, had not stepped into a public school in over a decade. And yet here he was, blending into anonymity as though he had been part of the staff all along. He held a tray with a simple meal, a sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water, and quietly took a seat at the corner table that was, fittingly, empty. He didn't care about appearances today. All that mattered was understanding. The first tray clattered onto the table near him. Children ran past, giggling, slamming into each other. And then he noticed her, a small black girl, barely 8 years old, clutching a worn tray with a single slice of bread on it. She hesitated at the edge of his table, staring at him with wide, uncertain eyes. Can I eat with you? She asked, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of noise. Kellen looked up, startled. The question was so simple, so innocent, yet it carried a weight he hadn't felt in years. Of course, he said softly, gesturing to the seat opposite him. She moved cautiously, sliding her tray onto the table, and sat down, her small hands trembling. He noticed the fraying edges of her sweater, the scuffed shoes, and the way she hugged herself slightly as if bracing for rejection. What's your name? Kellen asked, breaking the initial silence. Mara, she whispered. Mara, he repeated, savoring the sound, the name already etched into his memory. Nice to meet you. I'm Kellen. A flicker of curiosity crossed her face, but she said nothing. She picked at her bread, avoiding his gaze. The sounds of the cafeteria seemed to fade as he studied her. Her quiet demeanor, the loneliness that clung to her like a shadow, the way other children passed by without a second glance. Do you come here often? He asked gently, attempting casual conversation. She shook her head. I usually eat outside. The kids, they don't want me near them. Her voice cracked slightly, and he felt an unexpected pang in his chest. I see, he said, nodding slowly. Well, you're welcome here anytime. She looked up, surprised, her eyes large and glistening. For a moment she seemed unsure whether he was serious or teasing, but the sincerity in his tone was undeniable. Why are you sitting here all alone? She asked after a pause, curiosity creeping into her tone. Kellen let out a quiet sigh. Sometimes even grown-ups need a place to sit where no one is judging them. Her lips twitched in a faint smile. It was a small, fragile thing, but enough to make him feel as though the world had shifted slightly in his favor. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Mara nibbled at her bread while he watched, noticing the small details. The way she hesitated before taking a bite, the careful way she balanced the tray, the occasional glance around the cafeteria, as if expecting someone to shoo her away. Do you live nearby? He asked. Yes, she replied softly. With Mommy. Kellen's attention sharpened. Your mom, does she work? She works nights, Mara said, looking down at her hands. Fixing wires. People call it electricity work. She comes home tired. Her voice cracked, and he felt the first real tug at his heart. That must be hard, he said, keeping his tone gentle. Do you like it when she's home? Mara shrugged. I like it when she's not sad. She cries sometimes, but she hides it. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked rapidly to stop them. Kellen reached across the table, hesitating only a moment before placing his hand near hers, not touching, just offering silent solidarity. You're very brave, Mara, he said softly. You know that. Her eyes met his then, wide and searching. I have to be. And do you feel lonely? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, almost afraid to hear the answer. Yes, she admitted, a single word that hit him like a punch to the chest. I don't have friends. The kids, they don't like me. Kellen's jaw tightened. He had always thought money could solve everything. But looking at Mara, he realized there were some things that wealth alone could never fix. And yet, he wanted desperately to try. Do you want to tell me more? He asked gently. Mara nodded hesitantly. Sometimes, I just sit outside, eat my lunch alone, watch the clouds. No one bothers me there, but I feel invisible. That must be awful, Kellen said quietly. His own memories stirred, his mother struggling to make ends meet, the feeling of being overlooked despite his potential, the loneliness of not belonging. You're not invisible to me, Mara. She blinked at him, the corners of her mouth twitching with disbelief. Really? Really, he said. And I want to help. Her eyes widened, but she said nothing, unsure what he meant. Kellen knew words alone wouldn't suffice. He needed action, but action required planning. And right now he had only this small, fragile connection in the middle of a bustling cafeteria. You're very kind, she murmured, finally taking a small bite of her bread. Most people don't notice me. I notice you, Kellen said softly. And in that moment, the world outside the cafeteria faded to nothing. He didn't care about meetings, contracts, or headlines. He cared about this little girl and the loneliness she carried. They continued to eat, and conversation grew slowly, tentative but real. She told him about school, about her dreams of becoming an engineer, about the inventions she imagined that would one day make the world brighter. He listened, captivated by her imagination and determination, feeling a weight lifting in his chest as he realized that someone so small could hold such power to inspire. You have a very big heart, he said after a long pause, and he saw her blush faintly. I try, she admitted. And that's what matters, he said. Not what anyone else thinks. What matters is who you are inside. She looked down at her tray again, and for the first time she seemed to relax. The cafeteria noise returned, but it no longer felt threatening. Kellen realized he could stay here all day, just listening, just watching her grow braver in the presence of someone who cared. When lunch was nearly finished, Mara hesitated again, looking at him. Will you sit with me again? Kellen felt a lump in his throat. I will, he said, the words simple but sincere. I promise. Her smile this time was genuine, reaching her eyes, and he felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. As she gathered her tray and walked away, Kellen remained seated, staring after her. Something inside him had shifted, something profound. The world of wealth and power suddenly seemed distant and empty compared to this tiny, fragile life that had entered his. As the last echoes of laughter and footsteps faded from the cafeteria, he made a quiet decision. Mara's life would change, and he would ensure it. Not for fame, not for recognition, but because the sight of her courage and innocence had broken through the layers of his own hardened heart. And for the first time in a very long time, Kellen Ward felt something real. Over the next few days, Kellen returned to the school under the same quiet disguise. Each morning, he found Mara waiting near the cafeteria entrance, shy but resolute, holding her tray with a careful grip. She would glance at him with that same mixture of hope and fear, unsure if he would really sit with her, and each time he did, the weight in his chest grew heavier with something he hadn't felt in years. Responsibility. The other children continued their petty whispers and sneers, but Mara ignored them more and more each day. She spoke freely to Kellen now, showing him sketches of machines she imagined building. Little inventions with wheels and levers drawn in messy pencil on torn scraps of notebook paper. He marveled at the creativity she contained, so vivid and intricate the mind of a genius trapped in a child's frame. "Look at this one," she said one day, pointing to a crude drawing of a mechanical bird. "It can flap its wings and carry letters. I'm going to make one for Mommy so she can send notes to her clients faster." "That's brilliant," Kellen said, leaning closer, his voice full of encouragement. "You think about how your inventions help others, not just yourself." "That's rare." Mara's eyes lit up. "Do you really mean it?" "I do," he assured her. "I see it. I notice everything you do." A silence fell between them, comfortable yet charged. Mara suddenly fidgeted, picking at the edge of her bread. Do you have a mommy?" she asked cautiously, her small voice threading through the cafeteria clamor. Kellen's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "I did," he admitted, his voice tight with memory. She, she worked very hard, and she believed in me even when no one else did. But she passed away when I was your age." Mara looked at him, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. I think you understand me." "I do," he said quietly, staring at her. "More than you know." That day after lunch, Mara returned to the small, cold apartment she shared with her mother. The living room smelled faintly of burnt toast and electricity. Her mother had left a light on in the hallway, and the wires upstairs buzzed faintly. Mara sat quietly at the small kitchen table, her tray balanced in front of her. Her mother, Elise, came in, rubbing her eyes and looking exhausted from another long night fixing wires in a nearby factory. "Did you eat today?" Elise asked, her voice tired but warm. Mara nodded. "Yes, Mommy. I sat with someone." Elise raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Someone? Who?" Mara hesitated. A, a man. He, he listened to me. He didn't, he didn't ignore me. He's really kind." Elise studied her daughter, curiosity mixing with concern. "That's good, sweetheart. But be careful, okay? Not everyone wants to be nice for the right reasons." Mara nodded, but a small smile tugged at her lips. "I know, but he's different." Meanwhile, Kellen had begun subtle, almost imperceptible efforts behind the scenes. He arranged for Mara's mother to receive better-paying contract work under an anonymous foundation. He paid for overdue bills without a trace of his identity and quietly sent packages of books and school supplies to Mara's classroom, each one arriving with only a small note. "For the girl who never gives up." Days turned into weeks. Mara's confidence began to bloom. She spoke up in class, drawing attention not through loud words but through her quiet, intelligent observations. The other children started noticing her, some with curiosity, others with envy. But Kellen ignored it all, content to see her grow stronger in her own way. One afternoon, as the wind rattled the windows and the sky darkened with the promise of rain, Mara approached Kellen with a worried expression. Do you think Mommy and I will be okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Kellen looked at her, heart aching. "I don't just think, Mara. I know you will. I'll make sure of it." She blinked up at him, confusion mingling with hope. "How?" "You'll see," he said softly. "Some things happen quietly. Sometimes the best help is the kind you don't notice right away." That evening, Kellen walked through the city streets, unrecognized, blending with the crowds. He passed billboards advertising his latest investments, luxury cars whizzing past, and people who treated him as a name and nothing more. Yet none of that mattered. All he could think about was Mara, the small, determined girl who had no idea the ripple of change she was creating in his own life. He found himself visiting her apartment occasionally, leaving groceries or notes tucked into the mailbox. Once he repaired a broken heater in the dead of night, leaving no clue that he had been there. He wanted her life to feel safer, fuller, warmer, but without her ever needing to know who had intervened. At school, Mara's transformation was noticeable. The cafeteria, once a place of dread, became a space where she moved with quiet assurance. Still, she was cautious. She never revealed the depth of her struggles to anyone. One day, she confided to Kellen, "Sometimes, I still feel like they don't see me, like I'm invisible." "Then you make yourself seen," he said softly, leaning across the table. "You share your ideas, your voice, your heart. That's how the invisible become unforgettable." Her smile was small but genuine. I'm trying. You're doing more than trying, he corrected gently. You're shining. And yet, despite the subtle victories, tension brewed outside their connection. Other children were noticing the changes, the sudden confidence, the books that seemed to appear from nowhere, the rare moments of pride Mara displayed. Whispered questions arose. Who was helping her? Why was she suddenly different? Kellen sensed that curiosity would grow dangerous if it exposed him prematurely. One rainy afternoon, Mara stumbled in the cafeteria with her tray, soaked to the skin, clutching a handmade sketchbook. Kellen, she called, running to the table. Look at this. He smiled, brushing rain droplets from his beanie. Show me. Her drawings sprawled across the table. Mechanical birds, intricate gadgets, fantastical machines. I thought maybe I could make these real one day. You will, he said firmly, and I'll help you when the time comes. You have talent, Mara, and talent deserves the right opportunities. Her eyes glimmered, but a shadow flickered across her face. Do you really believe in me? Kellen leaned back, letting the noise of the cafeteria recede around them. More than you know. And if anyone tells you otherwise, remember this moment. You are not defined by them. You are defined by your courage, your heart, and your ideas. Mara's hands tightened around her tray. I wish Mommy could see this. See me. Not struggling all the time. You're not struggling alone anymore, Kellen said softly. And someday your mother will see everything you've become. She'll see the light you carry. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Mara hesitated, looking at him with something almost like fear mixed with hope. Will you be here tomorrow? Kellen nodded. I'll be here. As she left, he stayed behind, watching her small figure disappear into the crowd. Each day he felt more connected, more responsible. But for all his efforts to protect her, he knew that one misstep, one exposure of his identity, could unravel the fragile trust Mara had built with him. That evening, he returned to his penthouse, a towering structure of glass and steel overlooking the city. From his floor-to-ceiling windows, he watched the streets below, the distant glow of lights reflecting on the wet asphalt. Yet even surrounded by unimaginable wealth and comfort, he felt a hollowness he hadn't known existed until Mara entered his life. For the first time in years, Kellen Ward did not think about acquisitions, profits, or deals. He thought only about the small girl who had asked to sit with him, the one who had unwittingly broken through the walls he had built around his heart. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that her simple request, "Can I eat with you?" would change more than just her life. It would change his forever. Days blurred into weeks, each morning marked by Mara's hesitant footsteps and Kellen's quiet presence at the corner table. But the world outside their small connection remained unkind. Whispers followed Mara through the hallways, and not all children were curious or kind. Some stared with envy, others with suspicion. One afternoon, a group of girls cornered Mara near the lockers. "Where'd you get all these books? And why are you suddenly acting like you're better than us?" One sneered, jabbing her finger. Mara clutched her sketchbook tightly to her chest, trying to shrink away. I don't know what you mean," she murmured. "Don't lie. Something's helping you, and we want to know what it is," another girl demanded, her tone sharp and accusing. Fear surged through Mara, but she remembered Kellen's words. "You are defined by your courage, your heart, and your ideas." She squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. I don't need anyone's permission to try or learn," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. The girls stared, stunned, and slowly dispersed, muttering under their breath. Later, Mara trudged to the cafeteria, exhausted, tears threatening to spill. She sank into the corner seat, head down. Kellen noticed immediately, his chest tightening. "Hey," he said softly, sliding her tray closer. "What happened?" They were mean," Mara whispered, voice cracking. "They said I'm different, that I shouldn't have all these books. They don't want me here." Kellen leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Mara, being different is a gift, and the people who can't see your value They're the ones who are blind. She sniffled, glancing up at him. But it hurts. I don't want to be alone anymore. You're not alone, he said firmly. Not while I'm here, and not ever again if I can help it. Her lips trembled into a small, grateful smile. You really mean that? I do, Kellen said. I've never met anyone like you. You've already changed my life just by sitting here. Mara blinked, stunned. The words, so simple, carried a weight she hadn't expected. She wanted to say more, to tell him how she wished things could be different for her mother, for herself. But the bell rang, and lunch was over. She collected her tray quietly, eyes still glistening, and walked toward the exit. Kellen stayed behind, staring after her. He felt a fierce urgency rising within him. He could no longer simply watch from the sidelines. Mara deserved more. More than a kind word. More than secret packages and anonymous help. She deserved a future built on security, opportunity, and hope. That night, Kellen sat in his study, overlooking the city's glowing skyline. His usual world of deals and stock charts seemed distant and hollow. He tapped his fingers on the polished oak desk, thinking about Mara's small, determined face. The loneliness she carried was something he had once felt, something he had buried under power and wealth. And yet she had unearthed it without even trying. He began making plans, careful not to reveal his involvement directly. He arranged for Mara's mother to be considered for a full-time position at the electrical company, one with benefits and stable pay. He coordinated with local charities to provide extra tutoring and mentorship programs for children like Mara. And he quietly funded a scholarship fund in her name, one that would follow her through school, giving her every chance he wished he had had. Meanwhile, Mara's life continued with small victories. Her confidence grew in subtle ways. She raised her hand in class, shared her inventions, and even helped younger students who were struggling. She didn't know who was behind the sudden improvements in her life, but she noticed the change. Her mother began smiling more often, not out of forgetfulness, but relief, and Mara felt the first real sense of stability in her 8 years. One afternoon, Mara clutched her sketchbook as she sat with Kellen in the cafeteria. I want to make a bird that can carry letters for everyone who doesn't have anyone to talk to, she said, eyes bright with determination. That's an incredible idea, Kellen said, impressed, and you will make it. I promise, you'll make it real. She smiled faintly, but there was a shadow behind her eyes. I wish Mommy didn't have to work so hard. I wish she didn't cry alone. Kellen's chest tightened painfully. You've been so strong, he said, voice almost breaking. And because of that, things are going to change. She looked up at him, hope mingling with doubt. Really? Yes, he said firmly. No child should ever feel invisible. Not you, not anyone. The weeks passed, and the school announced a Donor Appreciation Day. Mara had no idea that Kellen would attend, nor did she know that the foundation funding much of her newfound opportunities would be publicly recognized. On the day of the event, the auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents. Mara sat in the front row, clutching her sketchbook, nervous and excited. The principal approached the podium. We'd like to honor a very special donor today, someone whose generosity has touched our school in ways too numerous to count. Mara's eyes widened as a tall figure walked onto the stage. Her gaze sharpened, confusion flickering across her face. The man in the gray jacket, the one who had sat with her countless times, the one who had listened, encouraged, and inspired her, was standing there as the billionaire Kellen Ward, one of the wealthiest men in the country. Gasps filled the room. Mara's small hand flew to her mouth. Her mind raced. The man who had quietly sat with her, who had touched her life in ways she could never explain, was him. He spoke from the podium, voice strong but gentle. I'm honored to be here, though I must admit I did not expect to be recognized. My goal has never been fame or recognition. It has been to help a child who showed me what true courage looks like. Mara's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to run up to him, to hug him, to ask why, but she froze, overwhelmed by the revelation. I first met Mara in the cafeteria, Kellen continued. She sat alone, quietly, carrying only her courage. She asked a simple question. Can I eat with you? That question broke through my walls and reminded me what truly matters in life. Mara, you've inspired me more than you could ever know. The auditorium was silent except for the quiet sniffles and the rustling of papers. Mara's mother, Elise, was in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she finally recognized the man who had changed their lives without them ever knowing. Kellen stepped down from the podium and walked toward Mara, kneeling so that he was at eye level with her. The room seemed to fade away as he looked into her wide, astonished eyes. "You never have to eat alone again," he whispered, producing a small golden paper heart from his pocket and handing it to her. "You've already given me more than I could ever repay." Mara's lips trembled, and she clutched the heart to her chest. I, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "Just promise me you'll keep being brave, keep being kind, and keep showing the world the light you carry." Her mother stepped forward, hugging Mara tightly, tears streaming freely. "Thank you, thank you," she whispered to Kellen. Kellen stood back, watching the reunion, feeling a warmth that no amount of money or power had ever given him. He had always thought wealth defined life, but here in this small auditorium, he realized something profound. It was love, compassion, and human connection that truly mattered. And Mara, the little girl who had been invisible to the world, had not only changed her own life, but had broken through the fortress of a billionaire's heart, leaving it open and full of hope for the first time in decades. The applause in the auditorium lingered, but Mara barely noticed. She was still staring at the golden paper heart in her hands, the one Kellen had given her. Her chest felt tight, a mixture of disbelief, awe, and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Her mother approached her cautiously, kneeling to meet her eyes. "Mara, do you understand what this means? He, he's helped us. He's been watching out for us all this time?" Mara nodded, tears slipping freely now. I, I can't believe it, Mommy. All this time. It was him." "Yes, sweetheart," Elise said, hugging her tight. "All this time." Kellen stepped back slightly, giving them space, but his eyes never left Mara. He had expected gratitude, sure, but he hadn't anticipated the sheer intensity of the emotions swirling in the little girl he had come to care for so deeply. He realized in that moment that she had changed him just as much as he had changed her life. After the ceremony, Mara's friends from school cautiously approached, their earlier envy replaced by curiosity and admiration. "Mara, is it true?" one of the girls asked. He, he's really been helping you." Mara smiled shyly, holding the golden heart close to her chest. "Yes," she said softly. "And I think it's not just him. It's everyone who decides to be kind, even in small ways." Kellen watched, quietly pleased. Her words, simple and sincere, reflected a wisdom beyond her years. It was a reminder that true change often starts small, with courage and honesty. That evening, Kellen invited Mara and her mother to his penthouse, not as a public spectacle, but in the quiet, private way he preferred. The apartment was vast, filled with modern art, soft lighting, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Mara's eyes widened, but she remained composed, her curiosity taking precedence over awe. "You live here?" she whispered, taking in the space. "Yes," Kellen said with a small smile. "But today isn't about me. Today is about you and your mother." Elise looked around, overwhelmed, her eyes misting. "Kellen, I, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," he said gently. "You've already given me something far greater than thanks. You've reminded me what truly matters." Mara stepped closer to him, holding the golden heart. "I want to keep being brave," she said quietly. "I want to help other kids too. Maybe, maybe we could build something together, something to make life easier for kids like me." Kellen's eyes softened. "That's a wonderful idea, and I'll be here to help you however I can." Over the next weeks, Mara's life transformed completely. Her mother's work stabilized. They moved into a brighter, safer apartment filled with books, supplies, and warmth. Mara attended after-school programs funded by Kellen's anonymous donations, where she met other children with bright minds and big dreams. She became a quiet leader, sharing her inventions and mentoring younger kids. Kellen, for his part, found himself increasingly invested, not just in the logistical work of helping Mara, but in the daily joy of watching her grow. He often joined her at school under the guise of various events, helping her refine her mechanical sketches or encouraging her as she demonstrated a small invention. He discovered that guiding Mara was a far more rewarding pursuit than any business deal or investment he had ever undertaken. One rainy evening, as Mara and Kellen worked on a miniature prototype of her mechanical bird, she paused and looked up at him. "You know, I never thought I'd have someone who really believes in me. Not just says it, but really believes." "I do," he said softly, "and you'll always have that, no matter what." Tears glimmered in her eyes. I, I think I love you," she said suddenly, the innocence of her words pure and heartfelt. Like, like a family love." Kellen felt a lump in his throat, his heart tightening. "I love you too, Mara. You've brought more meaning into my life than I ever imagined." Elise watched from the doorway, smiling through tears. "Thank you for being part of our lives," she said quietly. Months passed, and Mara's achievements grew. Her mechanical birds could carry small notes across the playground. Her inventions became part of science fairs and local competitions. Kellen's presence was always there, quiet but unwavering, ensuring that Mara knew she was supported, encouraged, and loved. One morning, Mara woke to find a note taped to her sketchbook. "Never forget your courage. Never forget your heart. Kim." She smiled, feeling the warmth of his words spread through her chest. She realized that, though the world could sometimes feel cold, kindness and care, when given unconditionally, could change lives forever. As years went by, Mara continued to flourish. She became known not only for her inventions, but for her compassion and leadership, inspiring other children who had felt invisible. And Kellen, he found a joy he had never known in wealth and power, the joy of connection, of seeing a life he had helped transform. He often reflected on that first day in the cafeteria, the small words that had begun it all. "Can I eat with you?" Mara had been unaware of the ripple she created, but it had reached deep into his heart, shattering the walls he had built around it for decades. He realized that in some ways, she had saved him too, taught him that even a billionaire's life could find purpose in love, compassion, and the courage to care for someone else. One afternoon, as Mara tested her latest invention, a small bird capable of delivering messages across the park, she turned to Kellen. "I'm ready for the next step," she said, her eyes bright with determination. "I want to help even more kids." Kellen smiled, pride and affection mingling in his gaze. "Then let's do it, together." And as they watched the tiny mechanical birds soar into the sky, Kellen knew with certainty that this was only the beginning. The little girl who had once been invisible, the one who had timidly asked to sit with him in the cafeteria, had transformed not only her own world, but the world of a billionaire who thought he had seen it all. She had broken his heart and rebuilt it, stronger, warmer, and full of hope. In the quiet moments that followed, Kellen and Mara sat side by side, sketchbook and mechanical parts spread before them, laughter echoing through the penthouse. The city outside gleamed with lights, but the brightest light of all was here, in the room, in the connection they shared. And it was a light that would never dim, because sometimes a small act of courage, a simple, timid question, could change everything. And for Kellen Ward, the little girl who had asked, "Can I eat with you?" had done exactly that. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If Mara and Kellen's journey touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and brings more inspiring stories to people who need them. Tell me in the comments, what moment moved you the most? Your voice matters here. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never underestimate the power of a small act of love.